they were trying to like reason out why Nick Fury wouldn't just call the Avengers to deal with this. And he's like, but it's my planet. It's like, yeah, they can do it, but I can do it better. And like, no, you're not doing it better. You're doing it much, much worse. Lots of people have died, Mr. Fury.
New week, new Nerd Legion here on Last Free Nation Culture. Be sure to subscribe for this show and Foreplay if you're interested in film history over there. It's a show I do with Thorin and Richard Lewis. But this show is about only the finest contemporary media that's out there. And why I'm laughing so hard is because we're back on the end of Secret Invasion. And this show is such incredible, hot garbage. I could not actually believe that the last two episodes were as terrible as they were, especially because it was just sort of inoffensively bland previously, and then it just drove itself right off the giant cliff of stupidity into a spectacular, idiotic car crash.
What can I say? The best way to describe it, I think, is we got marveled. We got marveled. They kind of tricked us into thinking maybe it would be like a little bit different from all the other Marvel shows, but no. In the end, we just got the good old Marvel punchy fight. People shooting each other.
That's right.
We got marveled.
It's like Rogue One, where they trick you into thinking it's a spy thriller, but actually it's just an apocalyptic battle at the end, just like every other movie.
I don't think I ever expected it to really be a spy thriller. I saw it more of a heist movie. It's more of a caper kind of thing than a spy thriller.
Okay.
Andor is a spy thriller.
All right.
Rogue One is a heist movie.
Most heist movies don't end with giant naval battles. Just going to put that out.
But why
there.
not?
Because it's bad. It's bad. It's totally incorrect, and it's terrible, and it doesn't fit with the genre or the theme of the movie.
Oh my God.
And it also ruins the beginning of A New Hope. So it does all those things.
Rogue One episode at some point. Maybe
we will do it actually very soon, because we're gonna have to do it before the Ashoka show.
You mean Andor, or do you mean Rogue One? Because Rogue One doesn't connect. Rogue One doesn't really connect that much to Ashoka, though.
Yeah, we'll do it because it's thematically appropriate for the lead into the show, and people have been waiting for that conversation for a long time. So we'll just push that one off. But I want to know your thoughts, because I was relieved knowing that I only had 2 episodes of Secret Invasion to watch. I have to say, my first reaction to opening it up was to see a 36-minute runtime on the episode and be knowing that part of it was part of that garbage AI intro, and I was going to skip that. And so really the pain was going to be very short-lived. That was my first reaction. So I was very happy about that. But it's surprising how much garbage they managed to stuff into like 2 35-minute episodes.
Yeah, it was quite incredible. Each episode was mercifully the length of your average, Friday night sitcom back when those existed and they were good. But where to begin? Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess we begin. We would save the grand finale, I guess. I only want to talk about the finale, really. But here's the thing. I just want to kind of skip episode 5 because it was just kind of dull and nothing really happened. There's no stakes. You can wave guns in Nick Fury's face all the time, and nothing's going to happen because he's Nick Fury. He's not going to die. He's the main character. I thought it was funny that Nick Fury was allowed to drive the president of the United States to the hospital, but then they wouldn't let him go through the doors with the president.
And also he was allowed just to protect the doors of the emergency room with a pistol by himself, just sitting on a chair there with a gun, just hanging out while the president's disabled.
Yeah, that was odd. I will say Sonya's the best character of the series. She was very entertaining the entire way through.
And was criminally underused. In the end, she did absolutely nothing.
God save the queen, though. She was great. And she said cake or death. So nice little Eddie Izzard reference there as well. I appreciated that. So yeah, she was a bright spot in the darkness of Secret Invasion.
I was just pissed that she was so good as Spy Mary Poppins, and then it just went nowhere and she did nothing, and her character really had no importance whatsoever. And
I was
also
very worried.
And also barely interacted with the other main characters or had anything to do with the plot. She was just kind of in her own plot line, had like a couple scenes with Nick Fury, and otherwise just tortured that Russian guy and then interacted with random extras for the most part.
Yeah, that's really it. She just tortured some people and talked to Nick Fury a little bit. That was enough. That was enough to make her my favorite character. Just the way she did it was enthralling to me. But the capstone of episode 5, the peak of episode 5, the peak secret invasion it got was when they were trying to like reason out why Nick Fury wouldn't just call the Avengers to deal with this. And he's like, but it's my planet. It's like, yeah, they can do it, but I can do it better.
Fury, why haven't you called any of your special friends down?
This is personal. We can't keep depending on these superheroes to swoop in and save our asses. None of them have lived the life I have. None of them can defend the world the way I can.
And like, no, you're not doing it better. You're doing it much, much worse. Lots of people have died, Mr. Fury. Like, this is not good.
I loved that conversation he had with Olivia Colman. Because she literally just asks him the question we're all asking, which is, why not call down some of your friends? And his response to it is, it's personal.
Yeah. Come on,
his response is, it's personal. Keep in mind that there is a false flag operation happening with the intention of starting World War III. And Nick Fury's response is, basically, it's personal, and we have to learn to do it ourselves. Why? Why do we have to learn to do it ourselves? A lot of the Avengers are humans. Don't they have a vested interest in the continuation of Earth and also not having millions/billions of people die in World War III and be taken over by the Skrulls? Why is it who's us? They are us. They are us. They're humans. The Avengers are mostly human. They care about Earth. What the hell is going on in this show? Why is Nick Fury like, talk about good? I'm so glad Don Cheadle fired Samuel L. Jackson, DoA, because he was right. The Skrull roadie was right. Nick Fury cannot be trusted to do anything. He's gone mad. He is willing to put World War III on the line and the fate of the entire human race because it's personal. Are you fucking kidding me?
So anyway, that's episode 5. And that's episode 5. Nick Fury has indeed decided to put the fate of the Earth, below. In order of importance, it's Nick Fury's embarrassment and sense of pride over screwing over the Skrulls. And then right underneath that is the fate of Earth and all its people. Yeah, it's priorities, Mr. Fury. So we learn a lot about Nick Fury, and we learn more that Nick Fury just kind of sucks. Like,
also, by the way, if Olivia Colman had any morals, remember, she is a person who doesn't. She doesn't. She's ruthless, right? That's how her character's been portrayed. So they're there getting the harvest, which is the DNA of all the Avengers from that gravestone in Finland, right, Noah?
Of course, yeah. How could you forget that scene?
Yeah. So when she hears this information from Nick Fury, she just shrugs and says, "Well, I guess that makes sense. I agree. Your personal beef is more important." Wouldn't that character just kill Nick Fury and take the harvest? Be like, you can't handle this at all. Clearly, I'm calling your friends. Oh, okay.
They're old buddies.
All right, so she just ride or die with Nick Fury, just gambling the fate of humanity for no reason. All right, I understand.
She seems kind of crazy that way, but who knows?
I want you to know that if you behaved like that and we were in that situation, I would kill you. I just want you to know.
I'm glad to know that. I would kill you as well. Don't worry.
I appreciate that because both of us should do what's best in the best interests of preventing World War III.
I will put the fate of the planet above you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's the right thing to do. We agree. If we're ever in that situation.
I'm glad we agree on that. So I've been watching the show with my wife, who is not a sci-fi fan, not a fantasy fan, not a video gamer at all. She's a very outdoorsy. She doesn't read fantasy novels, nothing like that. She's like, well, that's not real. Why would I read that? But she watches Marvel shows with me because I think she's entertained by my reactions to them. But even she, who gets annoyed when I yell things at the screen, which I do constantly, she started doing it. I've never seen her do this to a show before. And to an extent where I'm looking over, I'm kind of proud of her. It's maybe I'm starting to have an influence on her, but she's starting to see all these things now. And so the thing that stood out for me about episode 5 with that was when they get the harvest out of his tombstone. Mm-hmm. And then they go over to the mausoleum, and there's like 3 different casket things, and like one has his coat, one has like his gloves or something, one has like a gun, and she's like, why don't they just put it all in the same thing? That's just a huge waste of space. Like, does he really need 3 different mausoleum spots for like each little piece of his outfit? Like, yeah. And I'm like, you know what? That's right. Why does he need to waste so much space in the mausoleum? There's plenty of dead people that he will probably cause to die that could fill those spaces. So food for thought anyway.
And then we have to talk about the end of the show, DoA, because it is so uniquely terrible. And
episode 6.
This was my worst nightmare, which is apparently Emilia Clarke is now the most powerful character in the entire Marvel universe. So how much more?
She really is.
So how much more do we have to see of her in the future? That is a terrifying question for me as somebody who watches this content.
Well, so technically, I think, as I push up my glasses, technically, I think the magicians are actually more powerful. Like Doctor Strange and like a Scarlet Witch would technically be more powerful because they can just straight up use magic. So she could come at him with like one of each Avenger arm or whatever, like she does, and he could just snap his fingers and turn her into like a cloud of butterflies or something. So like I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, internet, but I think the magicians are the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe. I think. I'm not a Marvel expert.
I think you mean like among humans, right?
No, among basically everybody.
Okay. I think there's some
Doctor Strange just did that. I don't know. Anyway,
I think there's probably some, more powerful extraterrestrial beings, but sure, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that Don Cheadle is secretly a Skrull, but more secretly Captain Planet. You remember those? Old
I do.
skits?
The Funny or Die with him as Captain Planet. Those were
That's
great.
Right. Quite memorable. And yeah, what I learned about Nick Fury, one of the many things at the beginning of episode 6 is, man, he just, for loving the Skrulls, he really does not like Skrulls. Because like he shoots those 2 Skrulls at the gate, and he walks up and shoots another one. Oh wait, but that wasn't Nick Fury. That was actually Gaia. So I realize, I want to talk about the moment we each realized that it wasn't Nick Fury in Russia. The moment I realized was he was walking, like kind of stumbling through. It's like, oh, radiation. And he just like pops some pills. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a little bit too late, Nick. If you're already feeling the effects of radiation to that degree, I don't think this is the time to pop the pills. Wait a second. Okay, obviously that's not him. Obviously that's Gaia. Nick Fury is clearly back wherever the president is, and he's going to do that thing. And so I'm like, okay. And so I said that out loud. And my wife, who's watching the show with me, she was like, really? She's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, no, just wait. And then of course that's the way it was. She was obsessed.
So what happens is that Emilia Clarke's character Gaia goes into the Skrull base, which is irradiated. She pretends to be Nick. She changes into Nick Fury.
Gives a great Nick Fury speech, by the way. We really studied him well.
Yeah. And is popping the radiation pills because Skrulls are immune to the radiation. That's why they picked this base, is because humans couldn't go there. And that's where they have the machine that gives them the DNA of other beings to turn them into the super Skrulls. And so they end up together, both inside the machine at the same time, because apparently Gravik just doesn't want to take Nick Fury out of the machine when he activates it.
Why? Yeah, why? And then also, we already know that she's all Grooted up and has like some of the powers already. Why didn't she just Groot shove him out of the machine right as it was turning on? Why did she choose to allow him to have all the same powers she did? Isn't that kind of a big gamble to take, Gaia, with the Earth? I mean, I don't know.
Also, wouldn't this create, if you're mixing DNA and you put 2 other people in there, wouldn't it create some sort of like the Fly situation where they would mix their 2 DNAs? Wouldn't they just become Gaia, Gravik? I don't know.
How did the light know to give them each the powers equally? I don't understand. There's a lot of
also. I know. By the way, DoA, why the hell would Nick Fury ever willingly give up this DNA of the Avengers?
That takes a lot of trust.
No, he created a super being that he can't control. Remember, the whole problem of Secret Invasion was that he was using the Skrulls. The Skrulls went off the rails and he couldn't control them any longer, and then almost caused a global catastrophe.
Yeah.
So now he's just made the Skrulls more powerful.
What's doubly crazy about that is that Gaia, the speech Gaia gives to Gravik is like, just go ahead and take the DNA. I don't care anymore. Take it, and then take your people and leave. And you're like, whoa, that's crazy. Nick Fury would never do that. But he already did, because he did that exact thing only with Gaia. And like, even if he trusts her or not, still, that is an insane amount of power to give to any one being, right?
Especially ones that he knows have already betrayed humanity and tried to take over the planet.
Yeah, she was literally working for Gravik. 5 episodes ago.
She was a double agent, but even so,
Yeah,
these people,
okay.
the Skrulls obviously can't be trusted, right? And also, how does getting the Avengers DNA, if anything, it would only help them to conquer Earth faster because they've shown no inclination to leave and go find their own planet. Why would once they had the power, why would they go anywhere else or do anything else?
Exactly. There's no reason. You don't need to, unless other than, well, they're nice and they like Nick Fury now, and Nick Fury married a Skrull, so everything's fine. But let's talk. So I want to talk through the end of the Gaia Gravik fight, the end of that kind of thing, and then I want to go back and talk about the Nick Fury in Washington with Don Cheadle and all that stuff. I want to do a 2 towers with this. I want to get to the end with one party and then go back and, and focus on the other.
So what happens is, for those of you who didn't watch this terrible show, is they go into the machine and then they both get all of the Avengers powers, including like Captain Marvel, who's obviously extraordinarily powerful, and then
extra powers too. There's X-Men powers in there as well.
Yeah, and so then they basically become Avengers Swiss Army knives, where they pull out their various different functions, and they have like different arms of different characters, and there's like Hulk arm and Groot arm, and so then they have like the glow of Captain Marvel. And so from this point, they fight a mercifully brief, because God knows I didn't want to watch a bunch of that fight sequence, but also very badly CGI'd and very badly choreographed fight sequence. So you think you're getting set up for 2 super beings fighting each other, but it's over in like 3 minutes as Gaia just kills Gravik with no real pomp or circumstance or flash or anything. And that's it. And then she's just the last Super Skrull remaining, I guess.
I'm convinced that they were writing this show and they felt like they had to make it, and then people just kind of gave up after a while. They're just like, oh, we just have to end this. Like, can we end it in 30 minutes? It's like, no. Let's end it in 25. just get it done even quicker. Like, because the fight, I mean, they show off a bunch of different arms. One thing that confused me is she used the Drax, the Destroyer DNA to get a big beefy arm once. But I was surprised that she manifested his tattoos as well. That's a little bit surprised there. I don't think you'd get that information from just the DNA, but hey, who am I to nitpick?
That's what we do.
Yeah, that is true. That is literally what we do. But so when I first saw that, I was like, oh, okay. So no matter what we do in a Marvel show, no matter what happens, we always gotta end up with a big punchy fight. We just people punching each other with big arms across the room or planet or whatever you want to see, right? It always ends up with a big dumb punchy fight, and that's the essence of this show. I think is that I think they set out intending to make a gritty, slow burn drama, spy drama kind of thing, and then this might have gotten like studioed to death. This might have been a thing where it's like, oh, we needed to be more Marvel, and then it became more Marvel in the worst way, in the way that studio executives think it should be. I read an interesting article that I'm trying to remember where I read it from. I'm not very good at citing my sources, I guess, but that was saying that there was a directive coming down to a lot of these showrunners for streaming shows to make it more second screen, and what they meant by that is to make it so that you won't want to turn it off, but not make it like engaging enough to focus on, because the theory was that if you're focusing on the show too much, you'll be more likely to turn it off because you'll be more aware of when one episode ends and the next begins.
They
literally want you just binging on the second monitor.
Yeah, or you're looking at your phone while you're watching the show, which is just an outrageous way, because this show cost $200 million to make. $200 million, DoA. That is an insane amount of money for a TV show, and also one that doesn't even
helicopters for that.
It's also one that doesn't even exactly. The CG isn't good. I mean, I guess they got a bunch of actors that they kind of misutilized for the most part, or underutilized. Well, the lighting and visuals are very good. I mean, it's directed well in terms of the visuals.
Some episodes, yeah.
I mean, in terms of the non-CGI elements, like, it looks good. But that's about it. That's like the best compliment you can pay towards it, is that it's lit well and the cinematography is okay.
And it is well acted for the most part, because you do have good actors in that show who are terribly wasted by this terrible show. Which is kind of,
and also Emilia Clarke, who is used appropriately for her acting ability.
He was our general. He deserves a procession of mourners.
Dallas wasn't much for pageantry.
I don't know. I can't. I mean, I can't be too hard on her. She's Well, okay. So
why not?
I can and I can't be. On the one hand, she went through some really serious medical stuff, and that is serious, and that's
sad.
It's horrible, and I'm she's very fortunate.
She's also
to be alive,
just a bad
frankly.
actress. So,
but at the end of the day, it just seems like there isn't a lot coming through with this character for whatever reason, and that's not entertaining to watch.
Also, just as a question, I have so many questions about why the Skrulls appear the way they do, because they try and set up this narrative. For example, with Samuel L. Jackson's Skrull wife, about like, why can't you be comfortable in your own skin around him or with your own name? Like, why is he calling you by your human name? And why does he insist on seeing you as a human this whole time? So if that's the case, and Skrulls, kind of resent having to look like humans or blend in, why when Gaia is Nick Fury, why does she turn back into Emilia Clarke instead of just turning into a Skrull?
So that we know, because we're the dumb viewers.
Yeah, well, okay.
You forgot how dumb we are. We need to be like, it's Gaia. Oh.
I mean, you could solve that just by Gravik just being like, as she turns back into a Skrull, Gaia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. And Gravik is fighting as the Skrull the entire time because we need a big scary monster guy to fight. But it's
because they were saving on makeup budget.
Skrull out, I guess. But,
I mean, they're saving on makeup budget because, why would the Skrulls all look like humans while they're at the Skrull base?
It is silly, yeah. And then I love how she kind of wins the fight by manifesting the power of that one character from Guardians of the Galaxy, and is like,
Mantis.
Sleep.
Yeah,
Mantis. And you'd think he would be more aware of all the. I mean, I guess they're both using all these parts for the first time, so maybe he didn't know it was coming. But anyway, and then she just shoots a hole in him, and I think that's a Captain Marvel power, right? I don't know.
I also don't understand, because they've shown regenerative capabilities. They've come, both of them have kind of come back to life.
And she also stabs him through the torso at the beginning of the fight. But yet,
why does that kill him? Is he dead?
It was too big. This size hole, okay, you can recover from that. This size hole, we're talking
hole.
For those of you listening, I'm comparing a baseball size hole that's survivable. Giant 6 to 8 inch by 3 inch blade or so shoved through your torso in approximately where a human heart would be. That's survivable, but roughly basketball, I would say, sized hole, or at least smaller volleyball sized hole. That's too much. We've reached the limit. It's not survivable. Or is it a situation where we've opened the door for Gravik to come back? Maybe we zoom in on him later on in some other thing, and
the hole
it's
just
slowly
closes.
closing, and his eyes open. And he's like, "Oh, those humans, and also some of the Skrulls." Oh, but I didn't even check to see if there was a post-credit scene.
I didn't either.
Did you?
No,
I don't care.
I don't care. I was so angry.
I don't care if there's a post-credit scene.
At the end of this is just so absurd as well, because, as I said, now they just have to deal with Gaia not only an alien who is potentially hostile, and her species certainly has been hostile now, having all of the powers of various Avengers / supernatural entities.
Yes.
But she's also a shapeshifter that can turn into anything.
But she's good.
Is she? Because the whole thing at the end of the show is they basically just say, well, you're going to do stuff for us now. And she's like, okay, I guess.
I will use you, and you will use me, and together we'll make this planet safe for both our people.
And then the show ends.
Yeah, that is literally the end of the show.
The show, guys, the show ends with her in a conversation with the U.S. government, essentially agreeing to continue to be their pawn, like the Skrull were with Nick Fury.
In exchange for protection for her people or something. What was it in exchange for? But
basically the same bullshit lie that got them into this situation.
That doesn't go well. So, all right. So that means it's time to backtrack to the different plot, the other plot in the final, which is the president in the hospital. Question number 1. When the president of the United States of America has been badly injured, he can barely stand up. He's not physically capable of doing much. and he asks you for your gun, your responsibility as a Secret Service is to say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I know you feel threatened, but you're in no state to handle a firearm right now. Whereas me, the completely healthy Secret Service agent, is ready to do that. So
I also have the training to do it, unlike
it.
you, Mr. President.
Yeah, exactly. But they give him the gun anyway. And I'm like, why did they give him the gun? That seems horrifically dangerous. But we found out later, it was only for the sole purpose of setting up the standoff between Cheadle and Fury and the president, which would not have been able to happen at all if the Secret Service agent hadn't given him the gun. So,
by the way, DoA, what do you think was going on in the writer's room when they were creating the scene and somebody said, what if the president was disabled and in a rolling hospital bed, and we create a chase scene through the hospital with a rolling hospital bed? Doesn't that sound cool, guys? And everyone in the room was like, yes, that sounds like an amazing action scene. There's nothing anybody wants more than an old president of the United States crippled in a hospital bed, rolling through the hallways with Don Cheadle and Samuel L. Jackson shooting at each other. The concept of this is just so incredibly and fundamentally lame.
I'm going back right now. I've got the episode in another monitor. Hold on. I may have to backtrack on what I was saying earlier with that. So, because I'm waiting to see, is it the gun from the Secret Service agent with the broken arm? And it is. Okay, yeah. So he takes the gun of the Secret Service agent with the broken arm, who's kind of badly handling it with his left hand. So, all right, he's not a lefty, so he can't shoot very well either. So the funny thing is, earlier in the series, in the last few episodes, I'm like, why do they keep that Secret Service agent with a broken arm around? Couldn't they replace him with any number of other Secret Service agents that are healthy? And the only reason they kept the guy with the broken arm around is so that it would be feasible for him to give the decrepit president his gun.
That's amazing, actually.
It is layers on layers on layers of like trying to write yourself out of stupid situations. So that standoff at the end of the series was enabled by keeping this broken armed security guy around, then gives the injured president his gun. Wow, that is some foreshadowing right there. But it's not actually. It's
not. It's just bad writing. It's not foreshadowing. It's just bad writing.
That I have never seen like a badly written situation justified to that degree, where they set it up episodes in advance as to why this stupid situation could happen in the first place. That is incredible.
And what this leads into is the Mexican standoff between Don Cheadle, Samuel L. Jackson, and the president, where
I cannot believe that
Nick Fury is trying to. That is amazing. Nick Fury is trying to convince the president that Colonel Rhodes is a Skrull, which is true. Yep. And Rhodes is trying to convince him to like go through with. Oh, by the way, we didn't even talk about this. They're trying to nuke the Skrull base in Russia. So, question for you, DoA: why do you have to nuke it? Why do we have to send nukes? We could just bomb it like normally. It's not
right.
You don't have to. And also, do nukes even work against Skrull? Remember, they're immune to radiation. I mean, the explosion would work. Would you really get them all? It's like, why wouldn't you just send some drone strikes with some missiles to shoot this facility? You wouldn't start with launching a nuclear war. How dumb does Colonel Rhodes think this president is? If you came to the president and said, there's this target in Russia. First off, you would just tell Russia. Obviously, you'd say, hey, guys, you got a Skrull infestation down here in this abandoned nuclear facility. Can you guys blow it up, or can we do it for you, maybe? You're not using this. It's in the middle of nowhere. And secondly, why would you start with nuclear weapons? Why would you do that?
It's because he's a big fan of the movie Aliens, and he loves it when they talk about, we better nuke it from orbit just to be.
I mean, that was a good idea in Aliens, because there was no ramifications for doing that, right?
Yeah, and you need to make sure you get rid of all those xenomorphs, right? But in this case, the xenomorphs can be gotten rid of with just good old-fashioned bombs. Yeah, jumping to the excess of nuclear weapons instantly did seem a little bit implausible. Also, setting up that they should do this because of the threat of Russia massing troops on Ukraine's border.
What are we looking at here, Colonel Rhodes?
Real-time satellite imagery, sir. This is the Russian tanks taking positions on the Finland and Ukrainian borders.
Spicy writing choice, given the current political climate. I gotta say,
yep,
bold moves there. Yeah, that hits a little bit close to home, but yeah, that was an interesting element to include in their storyline. But all right, guess I shouldn't be surprised at this point.
I just couldn't believe that was really the debate that was going on as to whether we should just, and again, almost as we've talked about since the first episode of the series, almost all of these problems could simply just be solved by telling Russia what was going on. It's not like Russia, even if they're an adversarial state, wants an infiltration of their government by Skrulls any more than anyone else does at the end of the day. And you do have to cooperate in order to eliminate this threat. Like, it's like the enemy of your enemy thing. So
yeah,
I just don't understand why communication with Russia was just completely off the table. Like, do you think Russia wants the Skrull base inside Russia? Betting they don't. I'm betting they don't.
Probably not. But yeah, I just, and the whole idea of like making kind of Russia the theoretical adversary in this was, again, like a kind of a bizarre choice, again, given the current real world political climate and what's happening in Europe right now. And so it just, that whole thing just kind of felt uncomfortable the entire time, because you can't watch this, you know, in a TV show, in a fantasy TV show, you can't watch this storyline without mentally attaching it to what's actually happening, which is terrible, obviously. So it's just a weird writing choice.
I think it's a safe choice because they need an adversary, and they know that this won't be distributed in Russia right now. So there's no downside to doing it. That's what I think.
Oh, and you can't do China because Disney in China.
Yeah, you can't.
Like
so here's the reason why you can't do China, because if you did something with China, then the Chinese government would block Marvel films in China from being released.
Exactly.
So because there's no real ramification for like doing this against Russia.
What are you going to choose? Yeah.
you also can't even do like North Korea, because when film companies have tried to do that in the past, China has said you can't. If you do North Korea, you can't release films in China. You can't release that film in China. So it's all geopolitical maneuvering, you know.
Well, either way, it felt awkward the entire time and was not tons of fun. But and yet another element why the show is just it just didn't do it for me. At the end of the day,
no, it's not that it didn't do it for you, DoA. It is just terrible. It was incredibly wasteful in terms of.
Do it for me.
It was incredibly wasteful in terms of its spending, and also just the broader ramifications on the Marvel universe. I didn't expect to walk away from this show with a new most powerful Marvel character, because this is the thing we talked about on the last episode that we did with Secret Invasion, which is that the Marvel fatigue problem is real. Why would I have to watch this show to get this character, to understand the origin of this character that seems to be set up to play a very significant role in Marvel in the future, right?
Will this character even be coming back?
I mean, if the character doesn't come back, then it's outrageous because they just made her so powerful, right? And then they just ditch her.
I'm going to wager this character does not come back.
I mean, the character is hugely problematic, right? Like, in terms of writing for this character now, how do you do a storyline where her power and motivation make sense?
You kind of have to just make them busy doing other things, right? Which is what they did at the end of the series. Like, oh, you're going to be off busy doing subterfuge for whatever. But then, and the same thing in a way where, oh, Captain Marvel, she's off doing other things on other planets. That's why she can't help. So you have to like send the powerful heroes away, because Captain Marvel is arguably the other, you know, one of the most powerful out there, right? And you even notice during their big Marvel punchy fight, they both use different powers, but in the end, what they do, they just both resort to using Captain Marvel's powers, because why wouldn't you? You know, why would you bother with any other powers? Just use those. She's the strongest, and so why not just use those powers? Yeah. I thought it was amusing, and maybe I'm not sure if they were trying to go for some like sort of ham-fisted political commentary at the end, where it's like suddenly the U.S. president is just like, kill all the Skrulls.
We know who you are. We know how to find you. And we will kill every last one of you.
I mean, just like that seems like a very aggressive reaction.
Well,
not necessarily in the grand scheme of things, but still, like,
they set this up like really ham-fistedly, as you're saying, because even Nick, like the fake Nick Fury, so who's Gaia, right, is basically telling Gravik that it's easier. First off, all the speech that Nick Fury gives is rendered completely meaningless as soon as it's revealed that it's Gaia. Right.
He wrote that for her to then deliver to Gravik. He's like, hey, when you meet up with Gravik, I've got
this real quick.
I'd love you to tell this to him, but make it really emotional. He made her practice it. Right. She really delivered it well.
So
I thought
Gaia's when Gaia's pretending to be Nick Fury, she said, it's harder basically to change 8 billion people's hearts and minds. But you can't have a resonant scene when it's delivered by a Skrull, because how the fuck would she know that about human? Like, she has no authority to speak about the capabilities of humanity in terms of, that kind of appeal that Nick Fury would give, right?
I think the idea is that the Skrulls can take all of your memories too, or at least get a copy of them, and then
but they have to use the machine to do that.
Can infer their feelings, and so that is one of their methods of copying. Is they can infer how you should emotionally be conducting yourself too.
All right, well, they have to use those machines to do that, and like that, if it's not explained, then it's bullshit, and we can't. Again, it's back to speculation about what this show could mean, because it doesn't tell you what it actually is trying to mean.
Well, see, the thing is, a lot of the things I'm saying, I'm sure are things that are said, like in the writers' room and all that as well. But they're convincing themselves of how this could work, but then they don't deliver that information to us. So we have to come up with things that are obviously not things we should have to come up with. We shouldn't have to create reasons.
But the point is that you can't have the poignant speech delivered by somebody pretending to be somebody else. That it invalidates it immediately as soon as you see that it's actually Gaia. And
it does take all the impact out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And also, when you get to the end, the whole thing has been about human, bias and kind of xenophobia, right? And they want very badly for this theme to resonate, because it's been underlying the entire series about, are people actually capable of not being afraid of the Skrulls as a race, basically, right? As a species. And but it ends up falling really flat, because all of a sudden the president just goes on this tirade about kill all Skrulls, which also, like, I'm not against kill all Skrulls. I'm just gonna put it out there.
I'm the opposite. I want to find a way to live peacefully with the Skrulls. I think I'm a nicer person, but like it does, to me, it seemed like a big jump for that character. He obviously was not the smartest person ever, but like, that's a pretty intense jump to suddenly be like, do this. And, of course, they're trying to, mirror certain fiery political messages that have been delivered in our nation, in the last recent years. Like, but again, it's very ham-fisted. Like, they're trying to say, see, this is like this, so think about this in this way.
And then they show the roving mobs just like invading television sets and killing the Skrull, who's the anchor man,
Prime Minister,
and walking up to the Prime Minister of Britain and just murdering her. And it's just like, oh, she's not a Skrull now, right? Because
how do you get that close?
And also, how would they know that these people were the Skrulls? Because they had done a very good job of hiding their identity up until that point in time. Because the two people they show was the TV show host and the Prime Minister of Britain, who were both on that Skrull council. And we find out that they had released the Prime Minister of Britain, right?
Well, I'm trying to find out. So the only way people would know that those people had been Skrulls is if the release of these people from captivity would have been something that was publicized, which in that case, then you would know that they're not Skrulls. So then the other question is there another way that they would be released? Did the president have a list that he just like read out on that news broadcast?
Right, because they're vigilantes who are doing it's not government agents who are killing these people. But how could vigilantes get close enough to these people in the modern day and age? I mean, there's such insane security protocols.
I mean, I think you can have commentary on that kind of thing, because it is a serious issue in our, real world society, right? But but you got to do it in a way that like makes sense. Just like, this kind of goes back to.
Well, the thing is, it just slapped on at the end. There's no lead into it. It's like, the show's ending. Here's some vigilantes randomly killing people. # fuck all Skrulls, and then the show ends. You're like,
oh yeah, think about this too. Yeah. Oh, by the way, at the end, So it's and you go back and look at like Star Trek: The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine that dealt with some of these more serious issues that were topical at the time and still are. And they dealt with it in a much more nuanced, intelligent way that makes you think about it and still also be entertained by the show. And this is just like slapping your face with it.
to explore these topics, it takes a lot of effort, right? And if you, to reference Deep Space Nine, the whole arc, almost the entire show is just about the Bajoran and Cardassian relationship. That's like, that is the biggest theme in the entire show, from the first episode to the last episode, is what is the brutality? You know, is Kira a terrorist or a freedom fighter? And it takes 7 years to kind of explore and unpack all of these angles about what the Cardassian occupation meant, and what were the ethically right things to do for the Bajorans, and how should they be responding to the Cardassians now and their own independence? Should they join the Federation or remain an independent body? How do they cope with being suddenly the most important system in the galaxy because of the wormhole? And so you really have to go really deep on these in order to appreciate the kind of philosophical nuances. And even though they had been slightly leaning into this throughout Secret Invasion, just the end felt, as you say, so heavy-handed, of just like, and here's a shocking turn from just the president himself is telling you to kill Skrulls, and then the vigilantes are killing Skrulls. Show's over now.
Yeah.
And it's not nuanced at all.
It's not like that type of thing couldn't happen in real life, but it's more just, again, you know, the way they bring it up is very ham-fisted and lacks subtlety, and thus lacks impact, and, you know, lacks it's not memorable, right? It just kind of feels like a throwaway thing that they just threw in there. But
it also just sets up an existential crisis that in the Marvel universe that must be followed up on. Like, if this is a world-changing event that has occurred, and so if it is not followed up on in other Marvel media, how are we supposed to put any weight behind what happened in this series? Because you can't go back to, you know, now everyone, like the entire world is just going to be paranoid for years, and there isn't, you know, there's not another way to interpret that. And what I think is going to happen, to your point, is that Guy is going to be disappeared, and everybody's just going to forget that this happened, and we're never going to see it again.
Well, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen with this, because Marvel needs to maintain its blockbuster, family-friendly sort of overall, you know, vibe, right? So here's exactly what's going to happen with the packs of roving humans killing off Skrulls and real people accidentally, which is a very distasteful, serious thing, and a very, like, icky element in the Marvel universe. Here's how they're going to deal with it. They're going to have a scene in the next Marvel movie or two where maybe some like regular people are gonna be talking on, someone's gonna make a joke like, there could be a Skrull, and the other person's like, yeah, you never know. And that's gonna be it. That's how they're gonna reference this. And they're gonna be like, oh yeah, people are still talking about Skrulls, but that is the level that they're gonna touch it. It's not gonna go any farther than that.
Well, what a terrible day to have eyes, DoA, watching this movie or watching this show.
Yes.
Are we done?
Well, it got even no. Of course we're not done. We can't skip the very last scene of the show. Are you talking about?
Okay.
The romance, the emotional gravitas of Nick Fury and his Skrull wife that finally becomes Skrull all the way right in front of him, and he is like, I want you as you, and she becomes a Skrull, and he gives her this look, and he's like, it's like, I'm trying to smile, but I'm Samuel L. Jackson, acclaimed actor and dramatist, and I'm about to kiss a Skrull. And then he does, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And if you go back and watch that scene and look at the look on his face when he's about to kiss this person in Skrull makeup, it is priceless. And I will treasure the memory of it always. And I took a screenshot as well, which is hard to do, but if you find the right Chrome extensions, you can do it. But yeah, that happened. And then they go up to Saber and leave Earth together, and will hopefully never return. The end. Except for all the Skrulls who are being murdered on Earth. Sorry.
She also ditches them. I mean, she just completely leaves her people. And as for Samuel L. Jackson, like, he didn't sign up for making out with Skrulls in Skrull form. You know, they had an agreement. She would look one way.
Did they?
Yes, because she lived that way for years and years and years, right? And in fact, that's the previous conversation that his wife had with the other Skrulls, which is why don't you exist in your own skin? Why do you look like this? So they had a marital agreement, and the marital agreement was, she's not allowed to look like a Skrull. Okay,
which is horrible. It's a very distasteful thing on the surface, but
I mean, Samuel L. Jackson has certain sexual preferences.
If they're cool with it, I'm cool with it. But I'm just saying,
if it doesn't matter to her, if it does, I mean, I think it was fine. Apparently, it was fine for her for 15 years. If
I felt like she was putting on a brave face, no pun intended.
Okay, but
yeah, I know. And then he has to slowly lean towards that mouth of pointy teeth.
I wonder what Samuel L. Jackson said when he saw the script for that scene. And it just says, and then they kiss. And he's like, oh, God, what have I got myself into?
Now kissed. and she looks like one of those people that gets the plastic surgery to make themselves look like a lizard. We've all seen them on the Discovery Channel like 10 years ago or something. And that's how it ends. Yeah. And I mean, Nick Fury causes he doesn't really help anybody. I don't feel like Nick Fury saved the day here. I think he was kind of just ineffective the whole time. And was helped out by a lot of people, which maybe is part of the theme that Nick Fury needs help, but he never learned his lesson, I feel like. So the character of Nick Fury just got worse through the show. I thought he was a cool character up to the show, and now I think Nick Fury is kind of a loser, Can't solve his own problems. And wallows in his own self-pity,
and
liar,
a manipulator who took the entire fortune and fate of the people he was supposed to protect and then used them for his own career advancement and ends. It is just character assassination against Nick Fury. Like, nobody wanted this version of Nick Fury. I'm not happier that this iteration of Nick Fury exists in the Marvel universe.
No,
I mean, destroyed his character.
The Shield stuff is my favorite stuff in the Marvel universe, because I'm like, I love that we have this agency of normal people, for the most part, that are having to deal with these supernatural things. And how do they do that? All the gadgets they use and all that. I love that. That's so cool. It's my favorite thing in the whole Marvel universe. So Fury being the leader of all this, obviously very cool character. But yeah, now he's just kind of a scumbag, and that's it. He's gone. And I'm like, all right, later. Bring back Phil Coulson, the true director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury, not my director. Phil Coulson, bring him back from the dead again. Third time's a charm. He'll be the greatest director S.H.I.E.L.D. has ever had. Forget Saber. Crash that thing into the sun. Bring back S.H.I.E.L.D.
All right. We done? Are we done?
We done.
Okay.
Done. Thanks. We're done forever with Secret. Yay.
Fuck you, Secret Invasion. I hate Marvel. I'm so sick of Marvel.
I feel like a great weight has been lifted from my shoulders, and not because I stopped using Groot arms.
Let's talk very briefly about Strange New Worlds. So, we have the upcoming musical episode, but we're going to talk about the episode where Uhura was communicating with Nebula aliens.
Oh yeah,
and then also the Lower Decks crossover. All of this was a giant regressive step for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We were excited because we got a couple good episodes last week. These episodes are terrible. They are terrible. Why are they so bad?
Well, I am more or less on the same page with you about episode 6, Lost in Translation. That one, I'm glad that they tried to go back and do a big drama episode about facing the uncomfortable things in your past, dealing with loss and all that. These are all good themes to focus on in a show once in a while. But I never really got into the episode. The people in the gas people. It's like finding out there's like people living in your unleaded gasoline, and you're like, I really need that to drive my car. See,
maybe it was some sort of environmental commentary, DoA, on by taking. No, I don't. But it could be interpreted. I don't think it was intentionally that way. Where if you take the gas from the nebula, and it's supposed to kill these aliens that can't communicate except through visions that make people go crazy. But really, this was just a very disappointing revelation in Uhura's character, where she absolutely will not do the things she needs to do as a Starfleet officer. The whole thing about being a Starfleet officer is that sometimes you have to make the tough decisions and sacrifice people for the greater good. That's the whole premise of the Kobayashi Maru paradox, right? Mm-hmm. And when she's confronted with a situation where a dude is literally about to overload the engine on her own starship, she doesn't just shoot the guy. She tries to talk him down when he is in a paranoid delusion, which, by the way, she should be ejected from Starfleet for that. 100%. Like, she didn't do her duty. She needs to just shoot the guy. She needs to shoot the guy in the engine room. And instead, she tries to like empathize with him in a moment of crisis where that, does kill him anyway in the end, and could have killed many, many more people. And also, I have no idea what's going on with Captain Pike in these 2 episodes, because he's supposed to be an authoritative figure. And at the end of this episode, he literally just listens to Uhura, who, by the way, is having paranoid hallucinations. And she says they have to destroy the giant galactic refinery that they made.
I know.
He just says, okay. And then she makes the order to fire torpedoes.
Fire torpedoes! Torpedoes away.
And he just kind of nods his head. I'm like, you are a captain of a ship. She is 22 years old. She's 22 years old. She is a junior officer. She is the lowest commissioned officer as an ensign. And you just think, well, she has been seeing things. So I guess we should blow up this very critical facility to the Federation that we spent this entire episode saying is a refueling station on the Gorn front for our spaceships. And we spent all this money and time building it. And so, but yeah, we should just destroy it because you see dead Hemmer. Like, what an outrageous proposition for a captain to make. Like, Pike is the biggest patsy in the universe. And you know what's even worse, DoA, is that he does the exact same thing in the next episode, where he's just listening to these ensigns from the future and just doing whatever they want.
Apples to oranges. We'll get to episode 7, which I really liked, but
it's terrible.
And I really liked it. But episode 6, like, there were things I did like about it. I do think it's a well-shot show. I like the cinematography.
Yeah,
there was one shot where Uhura was going through an episode and they used that vertigo shot where, you either dolly back the camera while you zoom in the lens and things like that. And it makes that kind of cool effect. And they did a couple of that, but then they turned the camera to have, I think it was Kirk enter the scene to see if she's okay. And they ceased the effect and kind of brought it back to normal. So it was a really neat use of just like camera technique to convey emotional things in the scene. So I think a lot of the stuff is well shot and well directed, but yeah, I don't like how there's a tendency in this show for huge, enormous decisions to be taken completely on faith, especially in a very serious episode like this. Like, especially when they set this station up to be not just an important station, but an important station on the Gorn front, which is in theory the big overarching storyline of the season, right? The threat of the Gorn invasion. So it's super vital. So to just blow it up like that, I think it would have been much better. And what I was expecting,
it's just on a hunch,
them have a real ethical dilemma too, is to like, okay, well, you say this is here, now let's do some research to see if we can detect anything. Oh no, we can. Now there's this big ethical dilemma because the Gorn are a massive threat, but we also want to be true to our principles as Starfleet and protect all life forms and all that kind of stuff. And so I think we almost had a really good episode of Star Trek in there, but it kind of, like you said, regressed a little bit to the earlier season stuff where it's like taking too much on faith, pretty drastic decision making without a lot of evidence to make that decision. And,
what I hate about a lot of this show, DoA, is that Starfleet is not rash, right? That's the whole premise.
Pike is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kirk famously was, right, to a certain degree. But this is rashness that stretches believability. Like, why would anyone do this without any kind of evidence, right? Mm-hmm. Besides somebody who you still haven't really discovered the source of their hallucinations. It's outrageous. And it's the same stuff with like Spock stealing the ship, where people just act incredibly irrationally, and it's all just okay in the end, right? There's no debate about it. And I agree, it could have been a very interesting ethical dilemma, except it wasn't, because they wasted so much time on other bullshit in the show that they didn't have time to set up the ethical dilemma properly.
I was confused too, because at one point they said that sucking the gas people into the engine, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff, sucking the gas people into the engine was killing them. Other times they said it was torturing them.
Yes.
And then at the end, when they shot all the gas back into the nebula, then Dead Hemmer became Happy Hemmer. And apparently everything was fine. And I was like, yeah, but did they die? Were they tortured? I don't know. I think this whole episode was made to remind me that Hemmer existed as a character, because I forgot earlier that he did. So I was like, oh yeah, that guy, I remember him. Yeah. Oh, also in the video of him teaching Uhura stuff, he was like way nicer in that video than he ever was in season 1, by the way. That was a bit off-putting. I was like, wow, why is he so happy in this video? Other than the purpose of creating a happy memory for Uhura in that scene specifically. Yeah.
Emotional manipulation is the answer.
It was odd.
All right.
Yeah. So not a lot to talk about, I feel like, with that episode.
Nothing happened in that episode.
Tons to talk about with episode 7. I really liked this episode. And for so many reasons. And I know you, and I'm not surprised you didn't like it at all, because you don't like fun. Because you don't like it when a show just says, you know what, for one episode, we're just going to completely discard believability intentionally. We're just going to have a fun, silly episode that, you know, if you want to take it as canon, whatever it technically is, but don't worry about it. Don't, you know, it's like the intro to Mystery Science Theater 3000, when they say the line, just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax, which is why this episode was great. And also directed by Jonathan Frakes, coincidentally, as well, who did a very good job, I thought. And would you like me to go into why I like it, or would you like to talk about why you didn't like it?
No,
I'll give you a chance to go first, or would you like me to go first? Up to you.
So my problem is this. I don't watch Lower Decks, and I don't want Lower Decks to exist. It's not something that does anything for me in the Star Trek universe. I perceive it as kind of a bad, Adult Swim show. And I don't like the language of it, the casualness of it, because what I appreciate about Star Trek is that it attempts to be, at its best, it attempts to be higher brow entertainment of a bunch of highly educated and successful professionals discussing philosophical, ethical dilemmas, exploring the galaxy, coming into political conflicts. And for me, I don't want this casual, like, bro relationship between characters. And the fact that Lower Decks is actually based off of a very good episode of Next Generation, also called Lower Decks, which is about, the junior officers on the ship and their relationship and with the senior officers and the kind of the hero worship that goes along with that. But that episode is actually excellently written, and it doesn't portray these characters as kind of pop culture bimbos. They are just young professionals who have been through the academy. They're like Uhura, right? Uhura doesn't come across this way, even though she is very young. She is still brilliant in many ways in Strange New Worlds. And so for these like pack of idiots to just kind of show up or even exist within the Star Trek universe really just tilts me the wrong way. I don't need an animated comedy series within Star Trek. We've had great comedy within Star Trek. I love, a lot of people don't like the Ferengi episodes in Deep Space Nine. I really like many of them. So it's not that I don't like the for fun Star Trek episodes. There are some good Ferengi episodes in there. It's that this is so tonally different, and it's another time travel episode. And Mariner is a character.
We've had a lot of those, haven't we?
Mariner as a character is just fucking annoying. She's just annoying.
Oh, the bar to excite you guys could not be lower.
Pretty great, huh?
All right, let's just get going. I'll brief you on the way.
Wait, you're in charge?
Yep, job of a lifetime.
But you think portals are boring. Why would they choose you?
Probably because Ransom knew it would bum me out. Come on, sooner we leave, sooner you can get in your all-important portal time.
And also, it's not even an interesting trope because we've seen this done before in Star Trek, and we've seen it done better in First Contact, the Next Generation movie, where Geordi goes back in time and fanboys over Zefram Cochrane and is telling him all this stuff about how there's a statue going to be built and all the stuff he shouldn't be saying. And that actually causes Zefram Cochrane to freak out and try and run away before doing the flight that he needs to do to meet the Vulcans. And I think that is wonderful and really well done. But there's also no reason why, Zefram Cochrane is clearly a super important person in the history of the Star Trek universe for inventing the first warp drive. Why is everybody on the Enterprise super famous 120 years in the future? How is every officer worthy of that level of fame? Why is Pike's birthday a holiday? That doesn't make any sense.
I everything you're saying is true. However, you just need to relax in this situation, man. I don't watch Lower Decks either. I think I mentioned this on the show before, where I watched a couple episodes of it. It wasn't for me. I'm not a big fan of the super fast paced kind of raunchy like cartoon comedy. I'm like, everyone's trying to like
exactly
South Park or The Simpsons, and they're not.
Except South Park,
no one's really done it a great job.
South Park is actually still really good. That's
what I'm saying. They're trying to copy it and that style, and they're not doing it super great. I've been told Lower Decks gets a lot better over the seasons, which maybe it does. Who knows? I might go back and watch it eventually. But I was familiar enough with the characters to kind of be aware of their personalities and all that. I just love this episode on a conceptual level, from like, how do you make this into a working live action thing, right? Because again, the cartoon is very fast paced, almost too fast paced. Which they do actually reference in this episode, where one of the cartoon characters says, if you notice everyone talks so like slowly here and quietly, they are aware of this, right?
This era is weird.
I know. Have you noticed how slow everybody talks?
Yeah, and quietly.
Yeah.
But I like that you bring two cartoon characters into the live action realm. And usually when that's done in cinema and TV, they have to kind of slow down the cartoon characters to fit the live action stuff to make it more quote unquote realistic. And they kind of did the opposite with this show, where they sped everybody else up to kind of meet the pacing of a cartoon episode, kind of, which I thought was really interesting to see the actors have to kind of go through that. And I thought everyone did a very good job of kind of like matching that pace. And I thought it made the episode like very different and very entertaining. And so I think I just really liked it, first of all, from just kind of an experiment and let's try to do sort of a live action kind of cartoon thing. And I mean, in the show, Boimler is obviously the avatar of your Star Trek super fan, like someone who is a fan of Star Trek to a unhealthy degree, right? And so putting that person in Star Trek was also kind of the part of it too.
The problem is that also
that type of person run around,
It's literally been done better in Futurama. There's a Futurama episode
I haven't watched Futurama.
About an alien who literally kidnaps the crew of the original series, who's a super fan, who then causes them to like recreate their scenes for his own sadistic. He's like an all-powerful alien who loves Star Trek.
So I haven't seen Futurama, but
so I'm just saying,
anyway.
The point is that for me, this is all very boring because I've seen it done many times before. I do take your point about trying to stylistically match the cartoon energy, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I want out of Star Trek. And how many fucking silly ass episodes are we going to have this season? There's only 10 episodes of the season, and now one of them is this garbage, and we know that there's a musical one coming up. What the fuck is the tone of this show?
Much more serious.
Tell me, what is the tone of this show? What is it? Like, is this a serious drama about, is this a war drama about the Gorn? Because we haven't even heard about that since the end of the first episode, and now there's like a gas station at the edge of Gorn space. Otherwise, still nothing about the Gorn whatsoever. So when's that coming in? Is this going to be in the classic mold of Star Trek, like the last couple of episodes, which were quite good? Yeah, the Lost in Translation one had potential to be kind of a classic Star Trek episode, but just kind of fumbled the ball. And then now we're just going to get a bunch of
Strange New Worlds episode where they had the right ingredients, they just didn't put them together well.
Yeah. So what is this show? Like, nobody actually knows what this show is supposed to be. Nobody even knows what the characters are anymore, because I liked Pike a lot as a character, except now he just does whatever the hunch of his ensigns are, or the random people from the future.
Maybe.
And apparently,
or maybe he doesn't.
No,
it depends on the episode.
Exactly. And now he, instead of doing the logical thing, which is they have these people and they have to protect the timeline ostensibly. So what you do is you confine them to quarters and you say, don't touch anything. You sit there. You are officers. You understand the severity of the situation. You sit there until we figure this shit out. Instead, he's like, how much worse could it get? It's already super fucked up. And he's just so cavalier about the whole thing.
You're trying to apply regular episode logic to a comedy cartoon episode. none of the things I feel like none of the things I would normally criticize this show for, I can apply to this episode because it's so clear that they don't care. This episode was purely just made to be silly and funny, and that's it. And so I'm gonna allow them that.
We've
had
this before, DoA.
Yeah, but my point is I don't know what the show is, but for me that's a positive. This show has gone so crazy that I have literally no idea what I'm going to end up with when I turn on the show. And I like that about it. Because Secret Invasion, you know it's going to be dull. You know it's going to be boring. You know it's going to be frustrating. This show, I have no clue what I'm going to see every episode. And I've really started to love that.
But we've seen
sometimes it crashes and burns, but sometimes it's really great and it's always memorable. So I'm liking the show more and more overall.
Oh my God, it's terrible. We've seen the crossovers before. So here's an example of a crossover done well. The Trials and Tribulations episode of Deep Space Nine, where they go back to the Tribbles episode, where Dax and Cisco go back to the ship, and it's another time travel episode, but it's done extremely well. It's done extremely well, where they don't fuck up the timeline, and so you get to have the fun, because that Tribble episode was obviously stupid in the first place. It was a for fun episode of the original series, and then it's a for fun episode of Deep Space Nine. But the way that they put them in the costumes and rebuild the original sets, and then integrate the footage of the episode from the original series is really fucking cool. So it's not that you can't do the crossovers.
Is when they ask Worf why, he's like, what happened with the Klingons? Why did they look so different? Why do they look like, and he just says, we don't like to talk about
it. It was just brilliant, right? It's brilliant.
Mr. Worf?
They are Klingons, and it is a long story.
What happened? Some kind of genetic engineering? A viral mutation?
We do not discuss it with outsiders.
Yeah, but I mean, and the thing is like, your criticism of this is that, we've seen it all before. My response to that is like, yeah, that's what Strange New Worlds is. They're taking all the tropes and all the ingredients from previous Star Trek series, and they're just trying to do their own thing with it.
But it's also the reason why this crossover.
I don't think this one was bad.
This crossover doesn't work is because Lower Decks was an experiment in something that they were trying to do that was changing the very nature of Star Trek. And you know what? You can do that. Maybe some people enjoy that. I don't want it.
It's going into its 4th season.
I don't want
a lot of people enjoy it.
Infesting the actual real Star Trek. Like, as a non-canon humor, like bad Adult Swim piece, whatever. It's fine.
Sure.
I don't want it inside the canon of the main show. Jesus.
So what Monte is going through, everyone, I want to share this with you. I can explain what's happening with Monte right now. He's going through what I went through with Star Wars, which is where now the universe, the IP is wide open. Basically anyone can do anything they want with it. And at first it will horrify you and anger you. And I understand that. I felt those feelings too. But trust me, it's easier to just accept that there will be parts of your beloved IP that you absolutely loathe, parts that you like, but you just can't do anything about it, And so for you got a comedy cartoon in Star Trek now.
Jesus.
You can't do anything about it. I'm sorry. They decided to do a crossover episode because there's a new season of Lower Decks coming out, and I think it's a cross-promotional thing at the end of the day. Maybe that's jaded to say that, probably accurate. But either way, I enjoyed it because everyone was clearly having so much fun with it. I enjoy when I feel like the actors are having fun with what they're doing too, and I really got that impression from this episode. So yeah, I mean, was it a great piece of science fiction in Star Trek? No, of course it wasn't. It was stupid. But was it really fun to watch? And did I have a great time the entire, however many minutes it was? Yeah, I really liked it. I don't think I'm going to go watch Lower Decks. I still don't think that show's for me, but I had a lot of fun with them doing a cartoon episode of this series. And, I enjoy it for its crossover, originality, nature. And I know you don't think it's original, but it's a cartoon. They brought the cartoon in, which is fun. Just enjoy it. Just have fun. Why can't you ever have fun, MonteCristo?
I do, just not like this. This isn't fun.
It's fun. It was fun to me. This is the first time we've ever truly disagreed on an episode. But I think both our points are valid. I think you're absolutely correct in your viewpoint of looking at it from a classic Trek fan who has certain expectations for the heights the series can reach, which is totally true. This series has the ability to say things in a way that convey information and knowledge to people in a way that's very poignant and very heartfelt and very important. And it's rare to have a series that's capable of doing that. So it's sad to see it squandered. I understand.
And the actors are capable of delivering it. The cast is good, man. Like that's what's the characters are good. The cast is good. It just feels like it could be doing a lot more. And I think you're right. That's what's disappointing to me.
I think that's totally valid. And I totally feel that too. On the other hand, I think if the show and the actors and the showrunners want to just go off the rails for one episode and do this, and this is way more off the rails than even Spock Amok. I have to say that title once per episode. I'm contractually obligated. It's way more off the rails than that. If they want to do that, I think that's fine. And I enjoyed it. I am a bit concerned that there is a musical episode coming up.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you if I didn't. I would give this one more of a pass if I didn't know that they were also going to be shitting up with the musical episode.
I'm just the fact that there's the amusement park ride that is this series. I've accepted that's where we're.
The fact that there's like two of these episodes in a 10-episode season, that's what frustrates me. Like you get one, pick one. You can't have more than one.
We need to like establish Monte's laws for television series. You get one silly episode per season.
Per 10.
That is it.
10% cap.
1 per 10.
10% cap on silly Star Trek episodes.
Because beyond 10%, much too silly.
Much too silly for Star Trek.
The show's become much too silly. It was already silly, but for different reasons, more unintentional. This was intentional silliness, so I'll give it a pass on all the normal stuff I would criticize it for.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Nerd Legion, guys. Next week will be the remainder of season 3 of The Witcher, which just dropped. And then we'll see what comes after that. Might be reaching back into the old Star Wars bag as we wait for the new show to come out and preparing ourselves for that one. Or
Willow. I want to do
Willow. Oh, you want to do Willow?
If you want to see us talk about the old Willow movie,
you leave a comment below.
Compare it to the new Willow series on Disney Plus,
which you can't watch anymore.
Off Disney Plus. Yeah, I really want to do that episode. So if you want to see that one, let us know.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.